Welcome back to Lore of the South with me, Kelly Cruz. How the heck are y'all doing? Well, guys, we're going to be releasing a Patreon episode for y'all this week. I just flat ran out of time. I was supposed to have like 3 episodes in the bag for y'all, and I just kind of dropped the ball. Had a lot on my mind lately. I have surgery on Tuesday, so y'all keep me in your thoughts. And for our Patreon listeners, y'all will definitely still have your episodes coming out on time. They're already in the queue and ready for release. So if you're missing us, head on over to Patreon, and for $3 a month, you get 3 or 4 extra episodes for less than a cup of coffee, guys. You're gonna have a little bit of a trigger warning to go along with this episode. It's about the missing 411. Producer Mike and I recorded it back in March, I believe, and it was before we were supposed to have gone to the Bigfoot convention, and David Pilates was going to be a speaker there, so we kind of did some research, in air quotes there, about the missing 411 and his book series, and gabbed about it for a little while, and that's what we're going to release to y'all today in lieu of a regular episode. And like I said, there is a trigger warning that goes along with this. We talk about missing kids, missing people, and a lot of it's on camping trips. So if you have kids listening, just, make sure they feel safe. What else? Yeah, so there are a few little gory bits in there, but nothing too bad. But just wanted to give y'all a heads up in case anything like that, bothers you. Like I said too, especially if you have little kids listening. While I'm out of commission after surgery, I plan, I told y'all a couple weeks ago, I planned on having a bunch of episodes in the bank, but while I'm out of commission, I hope I'm able to type from my bed and get some episodes up and ready for you guys, or for y'all. But take care, y'all keep me in your thoughts, and I hope y'all enjoy this special Patreon edition of Lore of the South. Take care, and we'll talk to y'all next time.
Welcome to Lore of the South Patreon Edition.
Who are our favorite Lots listeners? Y'all are our Patreons. Thank y'all for joining us again for another Patreon episode with me, Kelly, and
me, Mike.
AKA Producer Mike. That's what y'all all call him. And I love it.
Hey, guys.
So today, we're going to be talking about David Pilates and the missing 411. I think I mentioned it on the regular podcast, but in April, we're going to be going to a Bigfoot and cryptid convention, which will be a first for us. And they just added David Pilates to the lineup. And if I'm saying his name wrong, y'all, I'm sorry. I heard it a bunch of times, but y'all know this accent, and it just does what it wants to with words and names and places and that kind of thing. But anyways, so he got added to the lineup for the convention. So really, I'd never been into the missing 411 stuff very much, but I've heard other podcasts about it. So I was like, well, what the heck? Let's watch the documentaries and let's see what we think's going on, because we're experts and stuff.
We still have opinions. We're allowed to have opinions.
Yeah, okay. And also, just so y'all know, Producer Mike, he is a non-believer in most things paranormal.
I'm a skeptic. So
I don't know that I really believe in Bigfoot and most cryptids, but I think it would be cool if they existed.
So it's more of a wanting than a believing.
Yeah, but I think it's cool. I think there's a we leave room for possibility, right?
Mm-hmm, kind of like magic.
As long as it's not a con artist magician, okay? I don't like magicians. No, babe. I'm going to go get the crystals out of the rock tumbler.
All right.
Okay, back to topic, y'all. Okay, so David Pilates. I took some notes while we watched the documentaries, and then I listened to part of the Stuff They Don't Want You to Know podcast, which I'm good. I really need to finish listening to that. It's pretty interesting. But David Pallades served for 20 years on the San Jose, let's say that again because I can say this word, San Jose Police Department before retiring. Did you want to add anything?
No, you're okay. Right on so far.
So, so after 20 years with the San Jose Police Department, he began writing books about, different... First, I believe he started off with Bigfoot books.
Yeah, it looks like he started with Bigfoot books and then kind of moved into this missing 411 thing.
Yeah, and then it progressed from there. I believe he's mentioned when he was approached by a couple of park rangers when he happened to be in a park helping with the search. And 2 park rangers independently came up to him and mentioned how people just randomly would go missing in the national parks with no evidence. Like, they would just vanish. Some would reappear. Some were never found or heard from again. And so he started putting kind of a list and what he calls profile points together to try to figure out what's going on here and what may have happened to these people. So after talking to the 2 park rangers, he started doing research on his own and called the National Park Service under the Freedom of Information Act and submitted all the forms that you need to be released specific information. And when he contacted the Park Service, which falls under the Department of the Interior, I believe, which is a big department, they came back to him, actually had their attorney call him once they received his paperwork, asking, well, why are you asking about all these missing people? What's behind your inquiry? Well, I'm going to call him David so I can avoid that last name. David knew from his previous research that they couldn't refuse him the information based on why he wanted the information.
Right.
So you can't decline somebody the information because for whatever reason. And he knew that. So he told the attorney that in so many words that, you can't deny me this information.
Why are we having this conversation?
And he's like, well, we're just curious. So the attorney comes back to him and is like, well, we're just curious why you need this information, why you even want it. Mm-hmm. What's going on? And he was like, well, pretty much what we've said. It's been brought to his attention that all these people have been going missing and there's no evidence to what happened to them, where they went, how they got there, if they did find a body.
And that it was so many.
Yeah, there's so many of them. And we'll get to what his profile points are after we cover this little bit of history here. So, come to find out, after speaking to the attorney's like, oh yeah, we're going to release the information you requested, except for it doesn't exist.
Yeah, that's
weird.
But in kind of a way, if you knew... each national park service is like this little place or whatever, but where would you, as a park service, even start that? Like, there would have to be a place to start.
Spreadsheets, a database.
Yeah. But I could understand why.
David even said in this podcast, he's like, I'll buy him a laptop and find him an intern.
Right.
All they have to do is weekly submit, if people have gone missing in their parks or not. And we could, start a database. It's not that difficult.
Right. Yeah. But I'm sure that the Park Service in itself had never had the infrastructure set up to do this in the first place. And it seems to me like especially the National Park Services, it would be so fractured as a department, right? Well,
it would just be like any, what am I saying? Any part of the government's going to be fractured, right? It's part of the bureaucracy.
Yeah.
Well, no, they're not even a bureaucracy. They're a bureaucracy. They're directly under the government. Like I said, they're part of the Department of Interior. But to counterpoint that, the National Park Service has their own law enforcement.
Right. Now, that would be different, why the law enforcement didn't keep up.
Because it's part of the Park Service.
Right.
So shouldn't that just be part of it. I mean, shouldn't there?
Sure.
I mean,
You would
because they
think.
do have a database that where they can, like, if there's been, say somebody comes in and trashes a campsite, or they find somebody growing a pot farm or something in the national forest. They have a database to put those kinds of shenanigans in.
Right. Because, well, they also, all that stuff fits right in line with their MO, too.
With their
you know?
daily goings-ons
Yeah.
or patrolling or whatever. So, they do have a database for those sorts of incident reports. But that database isn't linked to any other law enforcement database. It's kept internally within the National Park Service.
I'm sure that falls under some weird Homeland Security thing where they have it locked inside the government. I'm sure.
Yeah, but okay, why did 9/11 happen? What parts of the government didn't talk to each other?
Yeah, all of them.
Yeah, so FBI had info, CIA had info, but they didn't communicate with one another to share the info they had.
Yeah.
So this is another one of those cases where there's lack of oversight sort of thing.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I mean, because, like, if you're law enforcement within the National Park Service, why doesn't, like, federal, like, whether it's like the Marshal Service or FBI, why don't they all fall underneath the same jurisdiction and have, like, a shared database?
Yeah.
So,
Somebody never felt like it was important enough to start. And that's, that goes along with everything,
look up real quick, since you have your laptop up, how many national parks do we have in the United States? And we're just going to do the U.S. David Pilates covers, like, Canada, and I think he's even started going worldwide with this, but we're going to concentrate on the U.S.
423 national park sites in the United States.
Okay, so 423. That is wild. So that is a lot of land.
Oh, yeah. It tells me right here that spans across 84 million acres.
Wow. That's bigger than the state of Texas, y'all. I think. It may not be. I really don't know that. So, I mean, that's a lot of territory to cover. But when they know somebody is missing, and it's not, just some... It's not just, no, I shouldn't say just some, but it's not just a random single hiker that just disappeared in the woods. These are people with families, hunters who know the woods, who know the safety guidelines.
That to me was one of the things that really hung me right away, that got me right away. It was the fact that all these people have some form of experience. They've spent a lifetime in these areas.
The hunters, experienced woodsmen.
Yeah, the experienced woodsmen and stuff
who disappear without
that
a
disappear.
trace.
Yeah, without a trace, which is going to be a common theme.
Yeah, it's a common theme. And I mean, like, he has everything from couples who went out into the national parks to look for mushrooms. Turn around, the person's gone. Kids who disappear and then are found months later, miles away from the last seen location. Those are some of the, that's some weird goings-ons. But let's talk about his different profile points and what all of these cases have in common. So the first one that he has listed is called what he calls the point of separation.
Yeah, the point in which two people have either lost eye contact or
like, it
have
starts
went around
off as a
corner.
group, and then for some reason the group splits up and someone goes off on their own. In one case, he talks about a group of elk hunters, and one of the guys, this is up in the Montana Crazy Mountains. The Crazy Mountain Range, which we found is the youngest mountain range in North America, and is supposedly cursed by the Crow Indian tribe. So this group
That's where the kid died. That's where the kid died, was in the
was
Crazies.
that the kid one?
Yeah.
Okay, and we also have these elk hunters, and they were packing in on horseback and mule. So apparently the mule was spooked and ran off with one of the hunters' gear. And I'm not using names here, y'all. We're just going to kind of nickname it. So he knew the area really well, and he had actually had cakes or caches or stashes all around this area. So he went off after they got their camp set up for the night to look for the gear that he had stashed. Well, he never came back.
Oh, by the way, that was in the Crazy Mountains too. There was 2 stories. It was that guy and the kid, which didn't happen too far from each other, I believe. But that's for down the road too.
Okay,
sure.
So he did not come back that night.
No.
So that would be the point of separation, would be when our elk hunter who lost all of his gear left the rest of his hunting party and disappeared. Time of disappearance. Now, he says in the documentary mid to late afternoon, but I really think that's more like when they notice that the person has disappeared, especially with the adults, not so much the kids. The kids are usually noticed that they're gone within an hour.
Yeah, because that's usually a rally point. You probably hey, be back here by dark.
Yeah, and if they're not, then, something's up. So that's the mid to late afternoon disappearance, but I really kind of think that that's, like I said, more like a, when they noticed the person was gone. Boulder fields. This was a weird one for me. And every single disappearance, when they found where the person disappeared at, there was a neighboring boulder field, like a field of rocks. So, like with some of these people, they turn up barefooted if their bodies are found. They won't have any shoes on or anything. And especially like with the cases with the little kids, a lot of them will have just like little slip-ons or Crocs or, something like that. And they're not going to be covering cliff sides or boulder fields.
Or being, more than,
and a lot of times,
half a mile away or whatever the case may be. Yeah.
And then near water, which, okay, so the things happen near water, or their bodies are found near water.
I think that's also just like the evening thing. I think being near water is kind of a comfort place for people to travel anyway.
Well,
so
and
you're going to travel along a water path or anything like that, or not be too far away from water.
Right. And if you're a hunter, what goes to water sources? The animals you're hunting.
Yeah.
So it's probably smart to be near water in these kind of cases. So, honestly, that one's kind of iffy for me. Even though a couple of the cases, bodies were found in water. But we'll cover that in just a second. The next one on his list is a weather event. During the disappearance or right after the search begins, some sort of weather anomaly occurs. So,
which again in the time of year that all of this stuff is happening.
Yeah, deer season's like what, in the fall and winter, and if you're in a mountainous region, there's a good chance bad weather could blow in on you.
Yeah.
And like the case for the Crazy Mountain elk hunter, about the same time that they started the search for him, a snowstorm blew in.
Yeah.
There was another one where there's another group of 3. It's weird how, I kind of have a superstition about the number 3. And a lot of these have 3 people involved. 3 people were in a truck riding around looking for deer signs. One actually jumps in front of the vehicle, and one of the passengers jumps out to shoot. And at the same time that he gets out of the vehicle, a thick fog rolls in. And it's believed that he may have become disoriented, and that's where he disappeared from. So his point of, what was it called?
Separation.
Point of separation began when he jumped out of the truck. So, and one of the other things that Pallady says is that the searches only go on for 6 to 10 days as far as like official searches. And I did not write how long it took them to find this guy, but nothing. His body was eventually found in the Pecos River, and this occurred in the Santa Fe National Forest. And he was 9 miles from the starting point. Again, this is an experienced hunter. Why would he wander off in the fog like that? It's weird. It could be circumstance. But
that's one thing I was going to get into about this whole thing is that all of these stories are weird. But as a whole of how many people are out there, it really is a very small fraction and could just be coincidence.
Correct.
But at the same time, some of this stuff is weird. We haven't even gotten to the animals yet, but
yeah, we're almost there. We're almost to the animal stuff. So many of these people had disabilities or illnesses that may not have been obvious.
Right.
Or they were children. So, I mean, like, not to say being a kid is a disability, but
you're
really,
not developed.
Yeah, well, you're not taking care of yourself in the wilderness. You know, especially, I think this one kid was, like 2 in one, and they lost. The next thing on there is canines can't track them. They can't find a scent.
This, to me, is the strangest part of the cases where they find the body. They don't find the body in every case, but when they do, no animal was able to pick up a scent.
Right. So from point A to point B, where the body's found, A being their starting point, what happens to the scent? Where does the person go?
Exactly. And because some of these dogs are trained for tracking, so it's not tracking, like...
And then the cadaver dogs, a lot of times can't find the bodies.
Right. And if it was an animal, at any point, you would have a mess somewhere.
Right. Yeah, the bones, and I think in one case they did like only find like the top of a skull or something like that, and it had been the animals had gotten at the body. I think there was one case like that, but where the body was found again was like 7 miles from the starting point.
Right.
And why didn't the dogs trace him there to begin with?
Right.
It doesn't make sense. So, and if it was Bigfoot carrying people off, Bigfoot's supposed to be stinky. And not just skunk ape in Florida, but Bigfoot they say that he smells like a wet dog. Like there's like a smell of either rotten meat or wet dog in the air if there's a Bigfoot around. So maybe, is it because he smells like wet dog that the dogs can't track him if it's Bigfoot snatching people?
Well, they're trained to take the scent and find that scent. So if you have a piece of clothing or something from that person, or they're able to track them, but they wouldn't concern themselves.
No,
It'd be
but
like
if
a skunk.
Bigfoot is carrying the person or dragging them or whatever, not that they've ever found drag marks or anything, but why can't they? Is Bigfoot that stanky that he like?
I guess so.
He covers up the dead body smell. And I'll get to my other theories in a minute here, because I'm gonna go woohoo with some of these theories. Okay, so we got where canines can't track them. A lot of times, either a body or the person's items will be found in an area that had been already searched months or even years later.
Yeah.
So our elk hunter that went off to look for his stashed gear, all that was ever found of him were his boots, weapons, and backpack.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. There was somebody else, though, that they just found a femur bone. I can't remember what that was, but anyway.
And that was the Crazy Mountain elk hunters. But yeah, I mean, those are some really expensive items that a hunter would not leave behind.
No. Yeah, he would not. No.
Yeah, why would, and if it were a human doing this, I believe the weapons were a compound bow and a sidearm, like a pistol, just in case, he happened upon something that he couldn't handle. And so that means whatever snuck up on this guy and got him, it was a surprise, because he was armed and ready to go.
Scared out of his boots.
Yeah. Oh my Lord. Come for the spooky, stay for the dad jokes. That's producer Mike. Okay, so missing clothing.
That's another one that's weird.
Yeah. Because
all the clothing is usual. It's not ripped off of them. It's just there. Like the boots. They were just sitting side by side on the ground, as if you just, hey, I'm going to kick my shoes off right here and stick my feet in the water.
Yeah, and it's cold in the mountains. We probably shouldn't be taking our clothes off. Does hypothermia cause people to think that they're hot and take their clothes off?
I have no idea.
Because I know a lot of people in the desert they'll find naked, but I don't think I've ever heard of hypothermia causing people to strip off. I'm not sure about that, though, because I know they could feel like you're burning.
That's the first one on Google search.
What makes you strip your clothes off?
In fact, in extreme cases of hypothermia, you may feel very warm as your body dilates blood vessels in a last-ditch attempt to warm freezing tissue in your limbs.
Okay, so there you go. I mean, that could be it. Because one of our cases, let's see, where was this one? Santa Fe National Forest, I believe. And this was a woman. Let me find it on my notes. Okay, yeah, this was the couple that went out. They actually own property, like, right on the edge of this national forest. And they decided to go out morel hunting, mushroom hunting in the forest.
You know, until I saw this, I didn't even know that was a thing. Like, I knew people would go out into the woods and get mushrooms. Like, I've seen that. Okay, but as far as it being
mushrooms, not shrooms.
No. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So, but that's what I found was weird is that they went on this trip to do this. That this was the reason they went on the trip.
Well, no, they had property there, but they just decided that they would go explore the woods and go mushroom hunting, morel hunting, as they call it.
Okay.
But yeah, like, it's a thing now. Like, there's whole TikToks about mushroom hunting, and like, people are into it. I myself do not eat fungus, so I would watch you pick a mushroom, but I'm not gonna eat it. Anyways, back to the dead people. Okay, so this couple went up into the mountains, into the forest, hoping to find, I guess, some nice mushrooms, fungus for their dinner. And she somehow fell behind, I believe is what happened, when they were climbing up like a rocky area.
Right.
She fell behind him and got out of sight. So there's our point of separation. And
I think there was even didn't it start to rain? Like, there was even a weather event.
Yep, another weather event. A thunderstorm rolls in. The search begins. They search the area. After the thunderstorms, they said there was some flooding and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And when she was found, days later, she was found in 4 inches of water in one of the creeks.
Yeah, in the fetal position.
Naked.
Yeah.
So
no clothes.
Right.
No scent. Because even then, it wasn't the animals that came across them.
No, she was in the water. Yeah. The autopsy, she didn't have any water in her lungs, so they ruled out drowning.
Mm-hmm.
But they called the cause of death from hypothermia exposure. Right. Is what they said that the cause of death was. And with her being naked and the thunderstorm, but it says she didn't drown. But that makes me wonder if there wasn't like a flash flood or something in the area that she got swept up into. Mm-hmm. And flash floods can rip your clothes off. If y'all remember back to the episode about the Great Storm of 1900 in Galveston, a lot of those bodies were found naked when they were when they started the recovery efforts after being caught in that storm surge and the flooding. It just tore their clothes off.
Right.
So I mean, that possibly could have happened to her, but without water in her lungs, that means she didn't drown. And I don't believe that did they find any contusions on her head or anything, like she'd been hit in the head?
They never said.
I didn't write that down.
That's one of those things where they basically in the documentary pointed out stuff that was obvious that they didn't find, but they didn't go into we didn't find this and we didn't find this. They were just like, well, obviously she didn't drown because she was in water. That was it.
Yeah.
There was no further explanation about what happened.
So they ruled it exposure hypothermia.
Yeah.
Which it could have been, but it was just weird that how she ended up in 4 inches of water, if she didn't get caught up in a storm surge or a flash flood.
Yeah, because even if it was a flash flood,
she was a grown woman. It wasn't a little kid that wandered off and fell in a creek.
And think about this: if it was the flash flood, she would have been beaten to death too, because you would have been pushed into everything down that hill. Plus you would have had water in you, so you would have been. You would have been bruised.
I don't remember what her condition was, but she also had a condition that wouldn't have been obvious.
Eating mushrooms.
Whatever, you like mushrooms. You're a fungus eater. Okay, let's see. So we missing clothing. So we've got a naked lady, and I think we had another naked dude. I think the one that was found in the Pecos River. I think he was also. Let's not say that because I didn't write that down. So I'm not positive about that one. So we've got missing clothing. So we've got a couple of naked people that were found, and both of them found in water. Unknown cause of death, if the body is ever actually found. And I don't remember them talking about autopsies on any of the other victims that were found. I think the kid that they found, I think he was so messed up it was hard. They couldn't determine a cause of death because he had been
all
scattered.
They had found was...
Oh yeah, trigger alert, guys. We're talking about kids being murdered and stuff this time. So sorry about that. But yeah, so there wasn't enough left of him for them to even determine a cause of death.
But that to me was also one of the crazy stories about a 2-year-old kid who ended up 7 to 9 miles away and almost on the edge of property where people lived.
Oh, that's yeah. Didn't they find he had got hung up on a barbed wire fence and stuff? They found
clothes and stuff too.
Well, and he had been shredded. Well, his clothing had been shredded. He caught on the neighbor's fence.
Yeah.
Now I wish we had recorded this right after we'd watched it. Even though I took wonderful notes, y'all. Y'all don't want to see these. It's really bad. So we've got the unknown cause of death because, either they're not found or their bodies are in such bad shape that they can't discover the cause of death. And then the couple of others, I think it could have been hypothermia and exposure. It could have been that. And then his last profile point is the geographical clusters that occur. And in these clusters, in each national park, he counts between 3 and 80 disappearances within a so many mile radius in each of these national parks. And the national parks are thousands of miles big. Mm-hmm. So for somebody to be defined or to lose, let's just say 20 people, let's not even go as high as 80, 20 people in a 10-mile radius. That's
pretty substantial.
Yeah, that's pretty suspicious. But also one thing I don't have here is the dates of these disappearances. Mm-hmm. How long, over what period of time are you counting these disappearances? Yeah. If it's 80 people that went missing over the course of 20 years, then maybe that could say something. Or if it's 80 people in the course of...
Even then, we're talking about these are 80 people that vanished. It's not we just, car crash here, there, just passing away.
No, but people just having accidents in the woods.
Yeah.
Even the most experienced person could hurt themselves and not make it back out. Yeah. And then if the animals get to you, of course, but then again, we have dogs that can't track scent. So, if you hurt yourself and fell into a gully or something, surely the dogs could at least trace you up to the edge of the gully.
Yeah.
And let's see, I think I got one case left written down on here, and it was an older gentleman who, again, was a group of 3, went out hunting, and this guy sprained his ankle on the way into camp, so he stayed back at the campsite while his buddies went out into the woods. Mm-hmm. They came back at sundown, and their buddy was gone. So again, we got that point of separation that happened late afternoon, early evening. Well, they don't know what time he really disappeared.
Right.
They were gone all day. So, but his body was never found. Mm-hmm. And it seems like the main one that they concentrated on was the New York one. Remember that? That was the first case I think they went over. It was the
old man without an eye.
Yeah, the 82-year-old hunter he was from that area. Lived there his whole life. And he actually taught hunter safety classes and that kind of stuff, and acted as a guide from time to time. and he was blind in one eye. That was from a powder burn from, I guess, I missed, but I guess he was firing like black powder rifle or something. But anyway, so he was blinded by a powder burn, 82 years old, but still an active hunter. He went out into the woods, this national forest up in upstate Finger Lakes District, I believe is what they said, and went out with a buddy of his, and they coordinated where they were going to set up and, stalk. When they weren't stalking, they were stationary waiting for the prey to come to them. They weren't stalking. But so our first old guy, powder burn man, he sets up his spot, and his buddy goes on further down the trail, and he sets up his spot. They all have walkie-talkies.
Yeah.
So they're in communication with each other. Even Mr. Powderburn's son back at home has a walkie-talkie.
Yeah.
Just so that he can make sure Dad doesn't get 82-year-old Daddy don't get into trouble up in the woods.
Right.
So, I mean, they're smart. I mean, like, this he's following the rules. And, and hunters, too, they have to wear those orange vests. So that makes them look highly visible. So the two buddies, Mr. Powderburn and Buddy, they set up their stand, sit up for the day, and they agree at sundown. The friend's going to come down the path, meet Mr. Powderburn, and then they'll head back home for the night.
Yeah.
So when Buddy comes back down the path, Powderburn is gone. There's not so much as a leaf turned out of place. He had been perched up like on the side of a boulder, just waiting, hoping something would come across his trail, his path that day. And he was gone.
Vanished.
There wasn't any kind of trail, nothing. The buddy walked around, looked for him for a while, then he called the family, then they called the authorities. They searched and searched for this guy and never found hide nor hair.
Yeah, and that's they had one of the researchers or rescuers, talking about how anytime somebody goes missing, they always find something, whether it's a body or they find them alive. He's like, they always find something.
Yeah, or clothing, some pieces of them.
But these people that vanish like this, that's what makes it so different.
It's weird because they just disappear. And for him to be, that experience, like his age and blind in one eye, it would be easy to ambush somebody like that. Oh,
sure, yeah.
And they said his hearing wasn't all that great either. That was another thing.
He was 82.
Yeah. So, it wouldn't be far-fetched to think Grandpa could have just wandered off in the woods. But then again, here comes the search dogs, and they can't find Grandpa Mr. Powderburn.
Right. And they all wear that bright orange stuff. They have helicopters out overhead.
Yep, thermal, using thermal. And, he would either show up as a hot spot in that thermal, or he would show up as a really cold spot if he had been out there for a little while.
Yeah.
And that was a thing. I believe they said a snowstorm blew in right after his disappearance.
Yeah.
And they weren't able to get back out for a couple of days to search until the weather cleared. And if anything, that should have preserved a body, not made it harder to find.
Yeah.
So what do you think is going on here?
So the old man here, this is the one that, because there's no body and there's no evidence at all that where this guy went, that's the one that to me is the most unexplainable. Even though all the other ones have they all have similarities, right? They all have some of that point of separation, all that kind of stuff. But this old man, this one, I can't explain it. I just can't. That's the one that you can't put anything on. Some of the other stuff that happens with some of the other people, there's, even though there's weird spots about it, you're like, well, maybe you just couldn't track them. Maybe you just couldn't this. It's still weird that things happen, like the kid traveling 7 to 9 miles, a 2-year-old through the woods.
Yeah, over rough terrain.
Over rough
boulder
terrain.
Fields.
Right.
And almost all of these take place in like a mountainous state park.
Yeah, but even then, like you could say, okay, this kid was killed by something because of the skull. The top of the skull was all that was left, and the lady, even though it was weird her circumstance, they have a body to say this is what we think happened. You know, whether or not all the evidence matches up to it, it's still okay. But the old man had nothing. There's nothing. There's no body. There's no clothes. Nothing, just vanished.
But isn't that? I mean, like, and the hunter, the elk hunter,
you had to have been lifted off with a helicopter, or something had to carry you away.
Like little gray guys with big black eyes.
I guess so.
Spaceships, UFOs.
That to me would be the only explanation for no scent, no nothing. Nobody heard it.
Well, I mean, they can beam up cows and drain them of blood and put them back down.
Right.
So why couldn't they do that with Powder Burn Man?
I don't know.
Or Mr. Powder Burn Face?
Could be.
Grandpa.
Is that what you wanted to do? Are you ready to get into your conspiracy theories?
Well, that was a segue.
So what do you think happened?
I don't know. But I'm going to bring up a story that's not a missing 411 thing. And this happened like 2 years ago. And it was a 3 or 4 year old up in North Carolina. And he was playing in his grandma's house in the backyard. Or maybe he was 4 or 5, yeah. He was playing in his grandma's backyard. She had gone in or whatever, or kicked him out there to play. Who knows? I mean, like, we were raised in the 80s and 90s. Our parents didn't know where we were, so I'm not going to judge Grandma for having the 5-year-old in the backyard. Anyways, so 5-year-old wanders off. You know, they're searching and combing. Family is all there. They're looking for him. Can't find hide nor hair. I don't know why I've picked up that phrase all of a sudden. But anyway, so there's no evidence of what happened to this kid. Does that mean did somebody happen by and snatch him? I mean, they're a rural, woodsy, mountainous area of North Carolina. And it's spring and the weather's unpredictable. So, I mean, this is some kind of missing 411 stuff.
Sure. Just not in a national forest.
Right. But you know what? We need to Google it. I bet it borders a national forest.
No, probably. Hang on a second.
Yeah. Sorry, y'all. I'm Googling the story real quick because I can't remember all the details. Oh, y'all. He was only 3. Maybe I am judging Grandma. Ooh, y'all. Arnold, North Carolina. Okay, so he was 3 and he disappeared from Grandma's backyard. The low that night was in the 20s. And let's see, Casey wasn't dressed for the cold. And
he would have been dressed for cold. Maybe not that cold, but he would have been dressed for
the 20s.
Cold. Right.
The cold, it sparked a search. It involved drones, canine units, helicopters, and even divers. And about 100 volunteers showed up. By Thursday, let's see, what day did he disappear on? Said he spent 2 days in the woods. So Tuesday, he disappeared on a Tuesday, and so by Thursday, wind and rain had become so bad that the authorities urged volunteers to stay away, and I guess they paused the search. And they're not going to let me finish the article because they want me to buy a subscription. That's not cool, yo. So, people were so surprised that this kid had survived.
He survived?
Okay, so the kid disappeared we're going to say it was a Tuesday, and he was found on a Friday. He was in pretty decent shape. Some people thought that he was maybe sitting in a house or inside of a vehicle or something hiding.
Oh, yeah, because I do remember this now, yeah.
But here we go again. We have dogs, canine search animals.
That can't find him.
We have helicopters, drones, and all of this going, and 100 people searching, and nobody found him. So, and the kid did have a very low core temperature when they recovered him, and slight frostbite on the tips of his fingers. So once they had him recovered and got him to the hospital and everything, they asked him, what happened? How did you survive in those woods for 2 days by yourself? It's a 3-year-old. A 3-year-old.
Yeah.
He said a friendly bear helped him and kept him warm and helped and found food and water for him.
That's kind of wild.
Bears don't do that. And when it's 20 degrees outside, a bear's going to be night-night hibernating.
Gonna be sleeping.
So, and also, I don't think there's ever been a case of a bear taking in a child. Dogs and wolves, yes. Bears, not so much. And I don't think they were. So what was it? What saved that kid?
So let's back up. Is that the same feeling about the old man? Do you feel like it's a Bigfoot situation, carried him off, or do you feel that's more of a UFO situation?
So this is where it gets really weird. There's a whole group of people
that think it's both.
They think that aliens released Bigfoot. They're like alien pets, and they released Bigfoot down here on Earth. But I guess big feet can travel interdimensionally. So that's what you're going with? No, I'm just saying some people. I didn't say Kelly. Okay. I did not say Kelly believes that Bigfoot is an interdimensional beast in league with the little gray aliens.
But again, to me, that doesn't make sense, because if Bigfoot is... Why is he going to be put in the most remote places on the planet? Like,
because he's Bigfoot and we're not supposed to know about him. Of course he's going to be, like, we want to be remote.
And he's their pet?
He's alien's pet.
Are you sure?
Look at, what's his name? That Chewbacca. What's a Chewbacca? Chewbacca's a Bigfoot, right?
I guess.
He's an alien.
He's a Wookiee.
Bigfoot.
I gotcha.
He's an alien Bigfoot. So apparently George Lucas believes in space Bigfoot because he made Chewbacca.
Okay, so now what do you think about the little boy? That's definitely Bigfoot to you.
I don't know what it was, but I definitely don't think it was a bear unless he crawled into a bear's den and huddled up with a mama bear for a couple of days.
Yeah, but
I don't know that bear hibernate in North Carolina, because I don't know that it ever stays cold enough. Yeah, we need like National Geographic person here with us, because I know a little about a lot, but I don't know a lot about some things. Anyways,
bear hibernation.
Yeah. I am not
an expert.
Not an expert. Now I've seen like those calendars of the big fat bears in Alaska that get morbidly obese and then go to sleep for 6 months. Yeah. That sounds like the life. I could be a bear. Let me get morbidly obese. I'm almost there, y'all. And go climb into a warm, cozy hole and sleep for 3 or 4 months.
That's no fun.
People can't do that, though. No. We get like bed sores and stuff. Anyway, so back to the missing 411 and this kid up in North Carolina, which I did not Google to see if he was from near a national park.
Well, I think we need to back up further than that. So each one of these events that happened, right? You got the lady with the mushrooms who ended up in the river. You got the guy who just vanished, the old man with one eye. You got the kid. What do you think this is all paranormal stuff? Do you think this is all alien related?
I don't know. Okay, I'm going to introduce one more thing. Government conspiracy.
No, see, I could see...
Maybe they're collecting different demographics and doing experiments on them.
See, I see it more as government just failing. So they're like, we don't want to deal with this. We don't want to deal with
versus,
this. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Lazy. Right, yes. Lazy guy out there. And there's enough of them across the world, we know that for sure. That...
Guess what?
He lives next to a...
It runs right through the county he is from. It is called Croatan. Oh, that's like the Indians that from Roanoke. Okay, Croatan National Forest. I think that meets the demographics for missing 411.
Did the kid have anything like wrong with him?
He was 3.
That's true. That's one of the things. That's right.
Toddler.
Yeah, it wasn't just the fact that they had like
some kind of
an eye or something.
Right, sprained ankle, whatever. No, he was 3 and survived 2 nights in sub-freezing temperatures alone in the woods, but knew about berries and water sources.
Yeah.
And canines couldn't find him, helicopters and drones, and even divers. Nobody could find him. and the bear saved him. I think that could be Bigfoot. I'm of the opinion that Bigfoot is not an alien, but what do they call it? A relic hominin? Homonym? No, that's like a part of speech, isn't it? Y'all should see the wheels in my brain turning because I can't think of a stinking word. That's weird.
Anyway, what's it about?
Relic hominid. Hominid. I think that's right. Okay. So I think he's like a leftover from like prehistory. Like he's like Neanderthal, missing link, even though they say that's not like a real thing. They being scientists. But so I think that it could be. I don't think that Bigfoot is a Wookiee. Mm-hmm. I don't really have a thing about interdimensional stuff. But I do think that could be a relic hominid who felt sorry for this little baby primate that was wandering in the woods because Grandma left him unattended. I'm not judging you, Grandma. So yeah, I think that could be a case for Bigfoot. The other stuff, maybe the government's covering up aliens, and the aliens are picking up people and experimenting on them, and sometimes they spit out their belongings. And what was that movie?
Nope.
Yeah. And the aliens,
I was thinking
alert,
about that, yeah.
They would, the alien, they keep the people parts and spit out the non-edible stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
but anyway, we'll leave that at that.
Yeah. Yeah. So, aliens?
Yes, but I'm more of a believer in aliens than I am a Bigfoot. I could see Bigfoot being an alien like that. My brain could put that together
because of Chewbacca.
Yeah. But at the same time, like at the same time, all of these things to me, with as many cameras as we got in this world and as much stuff.
But this is in rural places where there aren't.
No, I get it, but that we would see more of it if it was a thing.
And I think if it were happening more now, people have trail cams and stuff like that set up. Like hunters, they're probably hunting where they have a trail cam at, right? Because that's what the spot they're watching to see what kind of prey comes through.
Unless Bigfoot had predator technology where he could turn invisible.
That's the thing too. Glimmerman. Y'all check out expanded perspectives about Glimmerman. And he was like a predator dude. But they say that may be secret military technology.
Oops, shh. We gotta save that for another Patreon.
All right, guys. I don't know how much we can beat out of this one.
I will say, though, for a guy who's not really into a lot of this kind of stuff, the lawyer type or cop type documentary, that this thing was very interesting. Mm-hmm. I mean, interesting enough for me to listen to a YouTube video while I'm driving.
Right.
I didn't, and it was done well enough. You didn't really need to watch the video. Other than when they talked about some stuff on a map, they would show some stuff on a map. But I listened to a lot of books all day, and it definitely kept my attention.
Okay, so my opinion, Bigfoot if it's saving a kid, it's Bigfoot.
Because you don't want Bigfoot to be a meanie.
Not the little kids. You can mess with grown-ups, but not kids. Kids and animals off limits. But so Bigfoot for the North Carolina kid. I'm gonna say aliens
for the old man. For everything else.
Yeah, and why? Because humans wouldn't leave behind firearms and weapons. Mm-mm. Humans would not do that.
And
I'm also gonna say maybe Men in Black, which is like Men in Black. Like the government agency that covers up alien stuff.
Men in Black.
Men in Black. Yeah. I'm going to say government, Men in Black, aliens, and Bigfoot.
Bingo. Hit all the points.
Yep, we got them. Solved. Case solved.
Yeah. Well, guys, it's been fun.
And I'm glad that little 3-year-old got saved by Bigfoot, because that's toddlers alone in the woods is kind of scary.
Yeah.
But you know what, though? Toddlers are pretty tough, because there was a case probably almost as long ago as the toddler. Anyways, I'm being told to wrap it up and get off of here. Okay. Bye, y'all.
Bye, y'all.
We'll talk to y'all next month on another Patreon.
See you. Bye.
Thanks, y'all. Bye.